Hi guys, so welcome back to another video on quadratic equations. Quadratic equation. And we're going to deal with more problems concerning solving quadratic equations using factorization method. So here we have number 5. We have a squared plus 3a is equals to 4. The first thing you want to do is rearrange this equation so that you can equate it to 0. So we're going to have a squared plus 3a, and we need to bring this one to the other side, so that everything on the right is, the only thing on the right is 0. This one has an invisible positive sign. So once that sign is coming to the other side, once it's crossing an equals to sign, it's going to change to the opposite. So we are going to have what? Negative 4 is equals to 0. So we end up with a squared plus 3a minus 4 is equals to 0. Minus because of what? It crossed the positive sign. The positive sign crossed to the other side of the equals to sign. Now what do we do next? The next thing we want to do is what? We multiply the first term and the third term together. So once we multiply the first term and the third term, we are going to have what? Negative 4a squared. Negative 4a squared. What I used to advise people to do is you forget about the a and a squared and focus only on negative 4 in order to find the factors of negative 4 that can also add up to what? Positive 3. So basically, after multiplying the first term and the third term, you need to look for the factor of whatever you get. In this case, negative 4a squared, but leaving out the a squared, that means it's negative 4, the factor of negative 4, that will give us, that once we multiply it will give us what? Negative 4, but once we add it, it will give us what? 3. So if you follow your knowledge of mathematics, you know 4 times 1 will give us 4. So now, all you need to do is know how you will change the signs. We know 4 minus 1 will give us what? 3. So we have 4 minus 1 is equals to 3, but 4 times minus 1 will give us what? Minus 4. The next thing you need to do in order to make this one factors of negative 4a squared, because these ones now are just factors of negative 4. But in order to make it factor of negative 4a squared, we need to do what? Multiply it by a. So that's why we're going to have what? 4a and negative a. Once it's only one standing on its own like this, you're going to turn to what? Negative a. So what are we going to have? We're going to have what? A squared. Then now, what are we going to do next? We are going to replace the middle factor, that is the second factor, or the second number of the quadratic equation. We are going to replace it with the new factors, that is the factor of what? Negative 4a squared. So we are going to replace 3 in this case with what? 4a minus a. So that's what we have here. We have what? A squared plus 4a minus 4 is equals to 0. Now if you look at it, you know that 4a minus a will give you what? 3a, which if you simplify now will still give us the whole of this back. So all we are just doing is we are replacing 3a with what? The factor of, or the factors of negative 4a squared. So now we have what? Negative 4 is equals to 0. We brought this one down back here. We brought this one down, and then we replace 3a with what? The factor of negative 4a squared. All we did is what? We multiplied the whole of the factor of negative 4 by a. That will convert it to the factor of what? Negative 4a squared. So after we've done that, what is the next thing? We need to look for anything that is common between a squared and 4a, and also a value, and anything that is common between what? A and 4. In this case, let me explain. We are going to look for what is common between the first term and the second term, and also what is common between the third term and the fourth term. In other words, it means what can divide the first term and the second term to the simplest value without remainder. That's what is common between the first term and the second term. The same thing is for the third term and the fourth term. What can divide the third term and also divide the fourth term to the simplest value without what? Remainder. So a squared, the only thing that can divide a squared is what? A. So we are going to have a into bracket a. What can divide 4a? We are going to use that same value to divide, or that same element to divide what? 4a. So we are going to have what? 4a divided by a, that will give us what? 4. Now what can divide what? Negative a and also divide negative 4. So we know that what? Negative 1 can divide what? Negative a, and negative 1 can also divide negative 4. So we are going to have what? A plus 4. If you've done everything correctly, these two brackets should be equal to each other. And what do you do after that? You equate it to 0. We are now going to do what? We are going to combine these two brackets. This one is going to be what? A. While the combination of this one and this one, the combination of the common factors will form the second bracket. So we have what? A and minus 1. So we are just going to bring the two together. If it's a positive sign, there's no sign in front of this one, we are going to make it what? Positive. So here we are going to have what? A minus 1 as the second. A minus 1 as the second bracket. What are we going to have next? We are going to combine these two brackets together. And so we are going to follow a rule known as what? The AB principle. The AB principle simply means what? AB is equal to what? 0. That is what? The first bracket is A, that means we are going to equate it to 0. And second bracket is B, that means we are also going to equate it to 0. That's why we say it's the AB principle. So what do we do after that? We just bring this bracket down. We open the bracket with 1. So we are going to multiply its element by 1. So A times 1 will give you what? A, and 4 times 1 will give you 4. So we are going to have what? We are going to equate it to 0. Now what do? We simply make A the subject of formula by doing what? Collecting like terms. So we are going to bring 4 to the other side, and that's going to change it to what? Negative 4. Remember, if a sign is crossing the equals to sign, it will change to its opposite. So we have what? A is equals to what? Negative 4. We do the same thing for B. We expand this bracket. A minus 1 is equals to 0. And then we collect like terms. We bring this one to the other side. It's going to be equals to A is equals to what? 1. A is equals to what? Negative 4 or 1. Let's go to number 6. A is equals to negative 4 or 1. So number 6 here we have what? S squared minus x is equals to 6. S squared minus x is equals to 6. Remember, the first thing we want to do is what? Ensure that the only thing on the right side of the equals to sign is 0. So now how do we do that? We simply take any other thing to the other side or to the left hand side. So we have what? 6 as a positive sign here. Once it's crossing the equals to sign, it's going to turn to a negative sign. That's why we have what? We have s squared minus x minus 6 is equals to what? 0. We got minus 6 because of what? The positive 6 here is crossing the equals to sign, and that will change it to what? Negative 6. Now what are we going to do? We are going to multiply the first term and the third term. So once we multiply these two together, we're going to have what? Negative 6s squared. Like I said earlier, all you need to do is what? Forget about the s squared and look for factors of negative 6. That once you multiply, will give you, that is, once you multiply those factors, you get what? Negative 6. But once you add those factors together, you get what? Negative x. Now, with your knowledge of mathematics and multiplication, you know that what? 3 times 2 will give us 6. That's just what you need to work with. But now you have to look for a way to add what? 3 times 2 will give us 6, but now you have to look for a way to either any of the two numbers that you can make negative that will make the final answer what? Negative 1. So you know that what? Minus 3 plus 2, which is also the same thing as 2 minus 3, will give you what? Negative 1, which is exactly what we are looking for. 2 minus 3 will give us negative 1, and what is here is what? Negative 1x. But we just ignore the 1 because it's not significant. So now, what do we do to make this one? Because these factors are factors of what? Negative 6, and not factors of negative 6s squared. So what we do is what? We multiply these factors by x. So we're going to have negative 3x plus 2x. Now, multiplying these factors by x, we convert them into factors of negative 6s squared. So here we're going to have what? Negative 3x plus 2x. What do we do next? We need to do what? We need to replace the second term with those factors that we've just gotten. So we are going to replace what negative x with negative 3x plus 2x, which is exactly what we are doing here. We've multiplied these factors by x. So that's why we have what negative 3x plus 2x. And then once we replace it, we just simply put everything back. So we have what x squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 6, because we brought this one down also, is equals to 0. Now if you look at this equation, if you simplify this one, negative 3x plus 2x, that will give you what? Negative x, which means it will give you exactly the same equation back. So what we did here was just to replace negative x with the factors of negative 6x squared. So now after replacing it like this, we need to look for what is common between the first term and the second term, and also what is common between the third term and the fourth term. So what do we have? How do we do that? That is, what can divide the first term to its smallest value that can also divide the second term, and what can divide the third term to its smallest value that can also divide the fourth term. So what are we going to do here? What can divide x squared is no other thing but x. Remember, we don't say x squared divided by x squared if you look at all what we've been doing, because it cannot work that way. So we are going to have what? x squared divided by x, that will give us x, and negative 3x divided by x, that will give us what? Negative 3. Then we are going to have what? 2x minus 6. What can divide 2x? But we not eliminate the x completely. So we have what? 2x divided by 2, that will give us what? X. And negative 6 divided by 2, that will give us negative 3. If you've done everything correctly, these two brackets should be equal. And once these two brackets are equal, all you need to do is what? Bring the first bracket down and combine the common factors together, as you can see here. So we have what? X and 2. So we combine these two together to get what? S plus 2. It's S plus 2 because of there is an invisible positive sign here. So we have S plus 2. We combine these two brackets together and equate it to 0. After doing that, what we need to do is follow the AB principle. The AB principle simply means that this first bracket is A, the second bracket is B, and then I go to independently or separately equate the two of them to 0. Just as you can see, AB is equals to 0. So we're going to have what? A is the first bracket, like I've just said. B is the second bracket. B is the second bracket, as you can see here. So we're going to what? We are going to put A is equals to 0 separately. We expand that bracket with 1. That is, we open that bracket with 1. So we're going to have s minus 3 is equals to 0. Then what are we going to do? We simply solve for x by collecting like terms or bringing 3 to the other side of the equals to sign. That gives us x is equals to what? 3. And that's our first answer. We do the same thing for the second one. We say what? X plus 2 is equals to 0. We open this bracket with 1, just like I did in number 5. And then we have what? X plus 2 is equals to 0. What do we do to get x? Or we solve for x or make x the subject of formula. We simply collect like terms, and so we are going to have what? S is equals to what? Negative 2. And that will give us our answers. Let's go to number 7. Now for number 7, you will see the reason why you have to understand how to look for the factor of what? The number alone, and forget about this one, because if you want to look for the factors of this one, it will make it extremely complicated. Meanwhile, it's still simple, it's still the same thing. But if you are thinking like that, it will make it look bigger than it actually is. So let's proceed. So we have what? S squared plus xy minus 6y squared is equals to 0. This one is already arranged, so we don't need to rearrange anything. What do? We multiply the first and the third term together. So I have to have s squared times negative 6y squared. S squared times negative 6y squared. So I'm going to have what? Negative 6s squared y squared. After doing that, just forget about the s squared y squared here and focus on negative 6 alone. So you have to look for what can we multiply that will give us negative 6. That is factors of negative 6. That once we add, it will give us what? Positive 1, because there's an invisible 1 there. There's an invisible 1 here. So what are we going to have? 3 times negative. We know 3 times 2 will give us 6, but 3 minus 2 will give us 1. All you need to know is what? 3 times 2 will give us 6. But we already know the way the sign will be arranged. But we now derive, after knowing that 3 times 2 will give us 6, we now derive the way the sign will be arranged in such a way that it will give us what? Positive 1, which is our goal. So 3 minus 2 will give us 1, and that's how we solve. 3 minus 2 will give us 1. Then what do we do next? We simply multiply 3 and 2 by xy. Not x squared, y squared in this case, just like it is. Or you can simply say take the square root of the two of them, which is simply sy x xy. So we multiply this one by what? Xy. So we're going to have 3xy and multiply this one by xy. So we're going to have negative 2xy. So after we've done that, we need to do what? Follow the same procedure. We're going to replace the second term with what? The factors of negative 6s squared y squared. Remember that once we multiply this one by xy and multiply this one by xy, they are now factors of what? Negative 6s squared y squared. So what are we going to have? We're going to have s squared plus 3xy minus 2xy minus 6y squared. Note that if you simplify this, that is s squared, you bring it down, then you have 3sy minus 2xy. That will give you what? Xy minus 6y squared. It's still going to give us this equation back. But the reason we do it like that is so we can do what? So we can factorize. So we need to look for what is common between the what? First term and the second term, and also what is common between the third term and the fourth term. So what are we going to have then? We need to say what? S squared divided by x, that will give you what? X. And 3xy divided by x, that will give you what? 3y. 3xy divided by x, that will give you 3y. So this is what we're going to have here. Here we have what? Negative 2xy minus 6y squared. So what are we going to? What is common between what? Negative 2xy and negative 6y squared is no other thing but negative 2y, because negative 2y is the only thing that can divide negative 2xy and that can also divide what? 6y squared. So you need to look for what can divide these two together. What can divide this one that can also divide this one, which is the fourth term. So we're going to have what? Negative 2y. Dividing the third term by negative 2y, we're going to have what? X. And dividing negative 6y squared by negative 2y, we're going to have what? 3y. If we've done everything correctly, like I used to say, these two brackets should be equal. You equate this to 0. So you bring one of these brackets down, and then you combine the two common factors. You're going to put them together. So you're going to have x minus 2y, which is exactly what we are going to get here, x minus 2y, because we just put them together. Just assume there is no negative sign here, it should have been positive sign. Or if there's no sign at all, it should have been positive sign. But here there's negative sign, so that's why we make it what? That's why we make it x minus 2y, because we just combine this one and this one together. After we've done that, we're going to follow as usual the AB principle. A is the first bracket, B is the second bracket. We're going to equate them separately to what? We're going to equate them separately to 0. We equate them to 0 separately. So we're going to have what? X plus 3y is equals to 0, and x minus 2y is equals to 0, because we open this bracket with 1. We just expand this bracket with 1, we expand this bracket with 1. So we have what? Yes, this is what we have. We have this. What do we do next? This is the most important place. You want to solve like you are trying to make 3 the subject of formula. It's important to put that in your mind. You want to solve like you are trying to make 3 the subject of formula. So what is stopping 3 from becoming the subject of formula is x. So you take x to the other side, you have what? Negative x. What is stopping y? What is stopping 3 from becoming the subject of formula again is because it is multiplied by what? Y. So you want to divide both sides by y so that it will cancel out. So once you divide both sides by y, just as you can see here, once you divide both sides by y will cancel this one, and we're going to have what? Negative x over y is equals to what? 3. Now, we can't have negative x over y. So what do we do next? We need to have what? We want to solve for x over y. But I said you should solve like us, try to make 3 solve the formula, because it makes it clearer what you are working towards. So we are going to do what? We are going to multiply both sides by negative. So we're going to have what? X over y is equals to what? Negative 3. which you can see here. That's what we did here. We simply multiply x over y times negative x over y times negative will give you what? Positive x over y, and 3 times the negative sign give you negative 3. We're going to do the same thing for what? The second bracket. So we have what? X minus 2y is equals to 0. What do? We since x is preventing negative 2 from becoming the sort of the formula, we are going to take x to the other side. So we are going to have what? X. It does not matter whether x is on left or it is on right. So we are going to have x is equals to what? 2y. Now what do we do next? By so doing, because we took this one to the other side is what made this one 2y here. Let's assume we took x to the other side here, we would have gotten negative x, and that negative x can still cancel out because the negative sign here will cancel the negative sign here. Negative sign here would cancel the negative sign here. Just as you can see, because we are taking x to the other side here, it's changing the sign to negative because x was positive here. So once it's coming here, it's going to become what? Negative. Once it's coming here, it's going to become negative. So let's proceed. So after doing that, what do we do next? We divide both sides by y, just like we are trying to, as if we are trying to make 2 the solid of formula. So we're going to have what? Divide both sides by y, we're going to have what? X over y is equals to 2y over y. And simplifying that, we're going to have x over y is equals to 2. Here we have what? P squared is equals to 2 into brackets p plus 4. What do? The first thing we need to do is open this bracket, eliminate the bracket. We're going to have p squared is equals to what? 2p plus 8. 2p plus 8. After opening this bracket, 2 times p, that will give you 2p, and 4 times 2, that will give you what? 8. What do we do next? We need to bring everything. We need to ensure that it's only 0 that is on the right hand side. So we need to bring everything to this side. So we're going to have positive 2p. It's crossing the equals to sign. It's going to turn to negative 2p. And once positive 8 is crossing the equals to sign, it's going to turn to what? Negative 8. So we have what? This is equals to 0. What do? We follow the usual procedure, multiplying the what? First term and the third term. Once we multiply those two together, we're going to have what? Negative 8p squared. We need to forget about the p squared first and look for factors of what? Negative 8. That is numbers that we can multiply that give us negative 8, but once we add them together, will give us negative 2. 4 times 2 will give us 8. So how do we rearrange our sign? How do we make our sign so we can get negative 2? 4 times 2 will give us 8. But if we make 4 negative and make 2 positive, that's the same thing as saying 2 minus 4, which will give us what? Negative 2, which is exactly what we have here. So what you just need to do is what? Know how you do what? Rearrange the sign. You can just put it into your calculator to give you the answer. If you're not sure, you can say negative 4 plus 2, that will give you what? Negative 2. But let's assume you made 4 positive and you made 2 negative. Once you put it into your calculator, it will show you what? Positive 2. And you can just flip those signs. You can just change those signs around and you get what it should really be, or you get the answer that we have here. After we've done that, remember what we need to do in order to make these factors factor of negative 8p squared. In order to make them factors of negative 8p squared, we're going to have what? We're going to multiply them by what? P. So we have what? Negative 4p plus 2p, because we're multiplying each of them by p. So that will make them what? Factors of negative 8p squared. So what are we going to have? We're going to simply replace negative 2p with the factors of negative 8p squared. We're going to replace negative 2p with the factor of negative 8p squared, which is what? Negative 4p plus 2p. So what are we going to do next? We're going to bring this one down. Then we are going to replace this one with the whole of this, or the whole of this, since we have multiplied them by p. We multiply both negative 4 and 2 by p. So we are going to have what? Negative 4p plus 2p. And then we bring down this one again, we are going to have what? Negative 8. So that's exactly how we go about it. Then the next thing we want to do is what is common between the first term and second term, and also what's common between the third term and the fourth term. We can do this by saying what can divide the first term to the smallest positive value, and what can divide, and that number must also be able to divide what? Divide negative 4p. For example, the reason why we can't use p squared is because if we use p squared divided by p squared would have given us 1, but negative 4p can be divided by p squared. So that's why we don't use that process. So we have what? P squared divided by p, that will give us p. and also negative 4p divided by p, that will also give us negative 4p divided by p, that will also give us negative 4. Let me state something clearly again, that the reason why we did not use p squared, because let's say we use p squared, we would have gotten 1, which would have been lower than p. But the reason why we did not use p squared is because of what? Negative 4p cannot be divided by p squared. What do we do next again? We have what? 3, and we have what? The third term, and we have the fourth term. So we need to look for what can divide what? This third term to the smallest value that can also divide what? The fourth term. So we have what? 2p divided by 2, that will give us what? P, and negative 8 divided by 2, that will give us negative 4. If we've done everything correctly, this bracket should be equals to this bracket. And this bracket should be equals to this bracket. So what do we do next? We equate it to 0. We bring down one of these brackets, and then we combine the common factors, we combine them together. So here there's no sign here, and remember if there's no sign, it's what? A positive sign. So we combine this one and this one together, we're going to have p plus 2. We put in 2 brackets, and then we are going to follow the AB principle. The AB principle is equals to 0. The first bracket is A, the second bracket is B. We are simply going to equate each of these brackets to 0 and then solve. So we're going to have what? Expand this bracket with 1. We're going to have p minus 4 is equals to 0. To solve for p, we're going to have solve for p by taking 4 to the other side. That is making sure that p is the only thing on the left hand side. So taking 4 to the other side, because if it's negative, once it's crossing an equal to sign, it's going to turn to positive. So p is equals to what? 4. And p, and here we have what? P plus 2 is equals to 0. After expanding this bracket with 1, we have p plus 2 is equals to 0. And then what are we going to do next? We are simply going to solve for p again. Because if it's positive, once it's crossing to the other side, it's going to give us what? Negative 2. So these are our answers. So that's how you solve quadratic equation using factorization method. And you can watch other videos. I've done more examples. You can check out my channel to see more of my videos. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe.